Hello everybody, welcome back to 539 Productions. So I'm in the middle of the country down this crazy little one-lane road which led into the forest for a little bit here. It looks like it's just a tiny little wooded area along this country road, and I'm at a place known as Bond Cemetery. What an absolutely amazing looking place, and I can't wait to see what we can find here. It already looks like there's gonna be some Civil War era graves here, maybe even older, but the entryway was absolutely epic, and I'm really excited to see what's here. And I was kind of expecting it to look a little bit more ragged than it does. It even appears that there are some newer burials here. It looks like towards the back here, things are starting to get a little bit older, and I'm not even sure where this road actually leads. I parked up towards the front just in case I needed to leave quickly, and now I'm gonna walk it all the way to the back, but it looks like it's just a loop at the back to turn around, so I could have actually come all the way to the back and been fine. I'm spying off in the distance quite a few older graves, and even one of the older metal graves that I've found only a few times here and there. Kind of a rare thing to find. I absolutely love this place so far. There's even some seating way in the back here. I don't know if maybe it looks like a few people have set up benches so that they could come and visit their loved ones. I'm surprised at how many newer graves there actually are. It looks like this last name is Sturgeon. A lot of this is pretty worn away, but comparatively to some of the places I've been here today, it actually is looking pretty amazing. They have taken quite loving care of this place. I'm going to try and get in as much as I can. However, again, I wasn't expecting it to actually be this large. It looks like most of the graves in the very, very back are new, so we won't film those. I really like the big style lettering that they've put on this headstone here. Seems like it makes it stand the test of time just a little bit better, although it has sheared off and now been just placed up against the other section of it. However, in a lot of cases with these thinner markers, that's really the only thing you can do. Otherwise they'll just fall again. And many of these headstones are actually very, very small, and they may be infants and children's stones. And you can see here that they are the children of a couple. So it looks like this section here is the children's section. A little piece of metal here. Might have been used to, oh, it's actually someone's ruler. I don't know if this was used when they were trying to restore some of the different things to, I don't even know, mark out places to reinforce certain things, or what it really is here for. But somebody has placed it right here in this groove of the base stone. It must have been that somebody's marker here has just been leaned up against the granite marker for Franklin and Mary. Looks like Frazee or Frazee. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it, but you can see that the WP here doesn't seem to match and may have been a daughter that potentially got married later on in life and had a different last name, or it could just be somebody completely different that their base stone was so worn away they couldn't use it anymore. I'm not seeing anything against the fence line. It does drop off down into a little creek bed. See, and this looks like an older style grave. However, there are no names on it whatsoever, so I don't know if anybody's actually buried here or if they were people that had purchased plots and stones before they passed and then for whatever reason were buried some other place, or maybe it's just that worn away from the winds and rain and the different weather patterns here that it's no longer legible. I think that actually is the case, because the closer I get you can see very, very faint lettering. It's kind of strange though, it's almost to the point where it looks like it was like sandblasted off. Like, I don't know how that level of decay occurs and yet it still looks so brand new. And the only other thing I can think of is that in an effort to restore it, they've sandblasted it down and they're gonna re-engrave it, but I don't know. I don't see that happening. This huge branch is falling right into the middle of these. Better at least. These must be 3 children here. You can see the names on the first 2. However, on this one over here, it only says infant. So I'm guessing that they probably died in birth and were never actually given a name. Right over here, the grave of Eliza McKinley is one of these amazing looking stone markers that are made to look a lot like the stone pinnacles but are actually made of metal. And if you give it a little tiny knock, you can tell that it's completely hollow on the inside. It's actually the marker for both her and her husband. And it appears her husband's first wife as well. And on the very front side is the name of Margaret, which was James's 3rd wife, which I've never actually heard before a family like that being buried all together. Another interesting name here. Looks like the first name of Thomas's wife was Axius. And correct me if I'm saying that wrong. However, it's not a name that I've seen used in modern times at all. And there's been a little bit of visible restoration work done down here. They've used some metal rebar to prop up the grave of William Bond. And there are still people coming out and laying flowers. It doesn't look like it happens very often, but maybe once a season. Pretty much everything in that row is worn away to the point where it's nearly unreadable. And even as I'm here, there is so much wind that it kind of makes sense. See how thin these letters have worn here. And really the only markers that seem to have clear lettering are ones that have the bigger style and deeper style engraving. This is a little bit different of a design here. I've never seen one that has the curvature quite like this, at least not in a headstone that is this thick. I've seen some thinner pinnacle looking stones that have used that type of style. It looks like the name of the artist is actually engraved into the base stone here. However, I really can't tell what it would have been. I always love when people use this type of stone. The pattern and coloring on it are so amazingly gorgeous. And I don't know how well it's going to translate to video, but it's sort of this very light grayish blue. And the last name here at the bottom is actually a little bit more faded than the lettering at the top because it appears to be a lot more shallow of an engraving. The stone next to it, which is engraved with, I think it says Father, is incredibly thick, which has saved it over the years from cracking and shearing off. There's a bit of poetry here engraved on the front. And this seems to be the only headstone that has had some issues with being lost in the brush, although it's mainly just decorative plants that have grown amok over the years. Other than that, though, it's in incredible condition. And with a little bit of careful weed whacking and some gravel or something underneath of it, it can be brought back to almost perfect condition. I wanted to check out the back here. The fencing looked kind of odd. There's a fence that goes off in this direction, and then there's another one that's been added here, but there's some junk behind it like I found previously. And there's a lot of tires, and then an old television just sitting back there. Also a decent amount of paint cans. But what truly confuses me, though, is the televisions. It's been, I think, at least my third or fourth time at a little graveyard in the country, or even a very large one, that I've found abandoned televisions at the back hidden in the woods. I think I may be coming upon another children's section, or a section that just has a very high amount of children's graves. These are definitely several children here, only a matter of months old. This area seems to have a little bit more of a mix. There's a few children, a few older people, and a few that are just completely unreadable at this point, so I'm not really sure who they represent or how old they would have been. So far I have not located anybody with either veterans markers or with the graves marked with their military record. It definitely seems like there must be a lot of wind, like I was saying earlier, as these branches just keep falling right into the graves. Luckily, it hadn't done any damage, though. Had it been any larger of a branch, it could have. This one is actually broken off into its 3 original pieces. I'm assuming with the level of care here though, eventually it will get put back up. There's a small little pile around this large marker, and may used to have been inscribed with the names of more family members, perhaps their children. And as beautiful as this tree is, when it does eventually have a very large branch break off, it could cause a very, very large amount of damage to the stones below. And these two seem to be the very largest headstones in this place. Again, it seems like the wind and the rain have worn it almost completely bare. Luckily, here on the side, you can see that this inscription has actually survived pretty well. And again, a lot better than the actual very large inscription at the bottom, which has the Draper last name on it. And behind the row here is several very, very small markers, all of which seem to be so worn away that they're completely illegible now. As if this one here was originally intended to have her husband buried with her. However, it doesn't appear that that ever happened. And although this is the Bond graveyard, I'm seeing a lot more last names. And actually very few people with the last name Bond. Here's an actual marked World War II veteran. And they actually have a plastic version of the veteran marker, which may end up standing up better to the harsh conditions out here. I finally have found a Civil War veteran here, next to this very, very interesting marker, which I can't even tell if it's a headstone or a decorative stone of some sort. It doesn't appear to have any sort of name on it at all. However, we can see that Isaac here, which I can't really read the entire last name, but he was a member of the 153rd Indiana Infantry in the Civil War. And just as the last veteran that I stumbled upon from World War II, it is actually a plastic marker being used instead of the metal ones. Which again may be because of all the damage that has been done by the wind and rain in these locations, and so the metal markers may never actually survive. And even on the back side of whatever this is here, There are still no names engraved, nothing on the top, unless again it's been so decayed that you just can't read it. However, I don't see any remnants of what appears to be engraving. Whatever it is though, it is definitely in need of some restoration work. The bottom is completely starting to chip away and eventually will fall over completely. I found this to be incredibly strange as well, and the only explanation I can come up with is that in the past this stone has fallen over and this little piece had been placed on top, but instead of moving that piece, they just sort of leaned the top pinnacle on top of it. Unfortunately, not every restoration job is perfect, and anybody can make mistakes, so I'm not sure exactly why that mistake happened. However, it does appear to be a part of either another grave or an individual family member's marker. In the very back here, I have spotted another Civil War veteran. Probably one of the last historical markers in this graveyard. Most of the stuff up front is very new, and it appears this place is still being used to some degree. This is Henry Venus, a member of the 16th Indiana Infantry. And just as with the others, it is a plastic marker. But as I've said, it's probably actually a good thing and will last a lot longer. And I think here, this stone may have been originally on this row of base stones, which it looks like they may have their own writing engraved in them, so I don't know. Maybe I might be wrong. You can see some very light engraving here. It looks like it's on all of them, so these actually just may be ground level headstones. You can tell it was not a professional service that created it. And this is one of the few people that I have found so far with the last name Bond. Again, I'm not really sure why that is. The cemetery is named after the Bond family, and it may have been that after some years they moved out of this area and it was taken over by other families and maintained and used by them, and so over the years it grew larger and larger with people that did not have that particular last name. And this here, which is a very old burial, seems to be a updated marker. You can tell that it's made to look like the same style as the older pinnacle markers. However, the engraving and the style of cutting on the stones indicates that it's nearly brand new. And as I've said, I didn't see this marker here. You can see that it was replaced in 2006. So it's amazing to see that a lot of these people still have family coming out to visit them so many years later. And this family may in fact be one of the families that lives right down the road from this graveyard. I love the engraving style on this headstone. The last name is engraved in very, very large lettering and should last for so many years going forward. And this one's kind of deceiving. The etching here isn't wearing away too badly. However, as I'm looking at it, it's not as bad on video, but it's almost invisible to me when I'm looking at it directly on. However, it's more of the pattern on the stone that seems to hide the lettering than actually it being worn away. And this is a very large stone for the same family here, the Geyer family, and is still looking incredible to this day. And a very interesting name as well, which is Mammy. And this particular veteran here, named Edward R. Kopak, was born in 1874 and then passed in 1948. I'm not sure exactly which war he served in, but it probably would have been one of the world wars. Looks like the flag has blown away in these winds. Not in the most incredible condition, but I hate to see it not next to his grave. So we'll go ahead and replace it there, and hopefully it'll stay for a while until somebody comes out and gives it a new one. Even up at the front here, there's still some incredibly old graves, and this very, very long row from the McKay family. A lot of them have passed in the 30s, which may be a sign that there was some disease going around at that time that was unfortunately killing a lot of people. And this is an amazing headstone here. I'm not sure exactly the process of making this, but it looks like something that would have been poured into a mold and then etched after it had dried and solidified. Behind that row is what appears to be a base stone with no headstone attached. However, seeing some of the raised sections here, it may have been an actual headstone that has fallen over and begun to sink. If it is, though, it's almost impossible to tell at this point because whatever engraving would have been on it is worn away over the years. And this here is another Civil War veteran, which is another infantry member, and their flag is completely blown away. However, the plastic veterans marker has fared really well. And I'm kind of guessing here that these stones have also been updated. Either that or something has taken a very large chunk out of the bottom of this one, but it almost doesn't seem to match. And this is an infantry member here. However, I don't think it was from the Civil War. They passed away in 1931, and although they may have been born in the 1800s, it seems doubtful that they would have been old enough to have served in the Civil War. And the unfortunate part of these plastic veterans markers is it seems like they slide very easily and will turn around on their own at the slightest breeze. And just like I found quite a few times, there is an old well here, and it's not near any of the graves, so it makes me kind of want to try it really quickly to see if it'll work. It still seems to function, however, there does not seem to be any water. Definitely is no longer tapping into an active well. It may have been used up, or I'm not sure exactly why it's no longer working. It doesn't seem like they would have used all of the water that's below just for this particular graveyard, unless for some reason the aquifer that they were tapping into is just incredibly small. So thank you for watching this exploration of the Bond Graveyard, a very, very interesting place out here in the middle of the country, hidden amongst these trees. And I hope to see you all in the next adventure. Bye, everybody.